Welcome, everyone. This is the info session for the 4+1 pathway with SIPA. My name's Claire. I'm the representative from Beyond Barnard today. I'm joined by Professor Ananat from the Econ department. That's the faculty liaison for this pathway. And then two colleagues from SIPA. We have Suya Yi, who's the Associate Dean for Student Affairs, and then Brianne Kane from Admissions. I'm going to talk a little bit generally about the 4+1 pathways and this one in particular. Then I'll hand things over to Professor Ananat, and then we'll hear from our SIPA colleagues. And at the end, we'll have some time for Q&A. You can feel free to put questions in the chat. In the meantime, we'll get them all answered at the end, or you can follow up via email if you think of something after the fact. A couple of things in general about the 4+1 pathways and about this one in particular. These are partnerships between the college and master's programs over at Columbia. They allow students to start taking classes towards their master's degree while still enrolled at Barnard. And then after graduating from Barnard, you enroll full-time over at SIPA and you complete the master's in just one additional year. So it saves you ideally a little bit of time, a little bit of money, and allows you to take advantage of the resources at both institutions. So that's the 4+1 pathways in general. SIPA is one of our oldest 4+1 pathways, and we're happy to have a really good, robust relationship with SIPA and like a strong contingent of applicants and participants in this 4+1 pathway. Beyond Barnard's role in all of this is to provide administrative support for the pathways, as well as serve as sort of a liaison between the college and Columbia. And then we also, of course, provide advising for applicants and participants. We generally see students in advising in two different phases. So the first is if you're thinking about applying, but you're not sure. Maybe you have a specific career goal and you're not sure how this would align with that, or maybe you have no idea what you want to do and you're not sure how this would fit in with that. So we're happy to talk to you about big picture stuff, grad school in general, this graduate path in particular, how that fits in with the bigger picture of your plans. And then the other general category of advising that we do is application advising. So if you've never written a personal statement for graduate school before, or need help getting your CV together, aren't sure how to ask a professor for a letter of recommendation, we help with all of that. We also do lifelong career advising for alums of the college and general graduate school advising. So all of those are available to you, whether you participate in the pathway or not. I think that's it from me. So I'm going to hand things over to Professor Ananat.
You'd think at this point I could find the mute button. Hi, welcome. Okay, so I'm going to share some slides just to sort of go over what my role is in all of this and sort of what questions I, in particular, am helpful to come to for, and then the part where sort of you need to come to me as part of the process of applying. Okay, so the key things that from the faculty advisor liaison perspective to know is that, you know, from sort of the having responsibility for your academic journey as you know, as the professors do, we want to make sure, you know, the SIPA 4+1 can be a really great, enriching educational experience. It is a really cool program that you all are really lucky to have the opportunity to consider. It isn't a good educational experience if it interferes with your timely and successful graduation from Barnard, right? Because that obviously is the number one reason that you came to Barnard, and we want to make sure that that happens, and it can happen with careful planning, right? So I'm here to make sure that you only apply to SIPA if you're positioned to complete your Barnard degree successfully during your first year of grad school. And that's a heavy lift. You know, to do undergrad and grad school in a total of 5 years is, you know, the whole reason that it's impressive is that it's a challenging pathway. I'm here to support you in doing that, and I'm here to help you make sure that it is the right thing for you. So there's a point before you apply in winter of your junior year where I sort of am a checkpoint, making sure that you have done the things that you need to do to be set up for success at SIPA. And then there's all the time prior to winter of your junior year, when you can be working with me, working with the folks at Beyond Barnard, working with the folks at SIPA to be set up for this checkpoint to be passed successfully. Okay, so what I'm going to check at that point in your journey is basically during your first year at SIPA, as Dean Yi will talk about in a little bit, or maybe Brian, I'm not sure, one of you, during that first year at SIPA, there's room for you to take up to 2 courses at Barnard. And for many students, that's going to be their 2-semester senior requirement for their major. Some other students may have completed their major requirements early, but might have 1 or 2 general education requirements left to take, modes of thinking, lab science, PE, language requirements, etc. And the key thing is, if in the winter of your junior year, it looks like you are going to finish the summer before your senior year, which would be the time when you matriculate at SIPA if you do the 4+1. If at that moment, the number of major courses that you still need to complete for your degree, plus the number of GERs that you need to still complete for your degree is greater than 2, then you're not going to be able to apply for the 4+1 in winter of your junior year, because that's too many courses that you still need to take. Sometimes there are other situations where there are other aspects of graduation requirements that you have to plan carefully to meet. So for example, you might have completed your major and your GERs, or completed those -2, but you're a transfer student and you studied abroad, etc. And you need a few more credits to be taken at Barnard in order to reach the required 60. So in order to get a degree from Barnard, you have to take 60 credits at Barnard. And so if you're going to finish the summer before your senior year with your credits taken at Barnard being less than 52, then that's also going to mean you're not going to be on a path to graduate successfully if you head over to SIPA. Okay. Sometimes people have more than 2 total classes left to take, not in order to meet degree requirements, but in order to do another goal that they have at Barnard, a second major, a minor, a certificate, etc. Then you can go ahead and apply to the 4+1, but you might be in a situation where you need to give up this other goal, right, of having this minor or the second major or whatnot, in order to do so. In other words, there might be a trade-off that you have to make a decision about. Okay, so what I'm going to check, I'm going to make sure that you're on track to have enough credits, right? So depending on if you're a transfer student, you need 121 credits to graduate from Barnard. If you've been enrolled in Barnard the whole time, you need 122 credits. A lot of times, by the time you start your senior year / first year at SIPA, you have more than 8 credits left to complete that 121 or 122. As long as you have enough credits at Barnard, that can be okay within a certain bandwidth, because some of the classes that you take at SIPA can count as general credits toward your Barnard degree, not your major requirements, not your GERs typically, but just general course credits. And most SIPA courses can count as long as they include liberal arts content. So, Barnard only gives credit for liberal arts classes. They don't give credit for professional training. That's going to look like things like management, accounting, leadership. These are skills taught at SIPA as part of the professional degree, but they're not liberal arts content. A lot of other things, econ, poli-sci, sociology, a lot of those classes are also taught at SIPA, and they can count toward Barnard. Those will generally count as long as they're not redundant with work that you've done at Barnard. So if you've already taken microeconomics, you can't take the same class twice and count it twice. Statistics, etc. If you've already taken it. If you have, if those classes are new to you, then you can count them as liberal arts credit. So I'm there to help you figure out what classes you need to take in order to fulfill those graduation credits. Okay. So I'm going to check because you're going to submit a form in January of your junior year with information on what you've completed so far and then your plan for the next 8 months. So this is in January. So your plan for the spring semester and any courses you plan to take over the summer. Um, so that's right. That's all going to be on this form. And then also the classes that you plan to take at SIPA during your first year and count toward those Barnard credit totals. And then you should expect feedback from me in January of your junior year after you submit that form, because many plans have holes the first time through. And I'm just going to work with you iteratively to get a plan that makes sense. And then once we've agreed on a plan, then that checkpoint has been passed and you have permission to apply to SIPA. And just to be clear, not everyone gets permission, but if you've been working with me since earlier on, you will probably be set up for success. Okay, I also have other roles as the advisor. I'm always happy to talk to you at any point in your time at Barnard about whether the SIPA degree is a good fit for your goals. What is it that you want to do? What are you looking for? What can SIPA do for you? How does it fit in with your Barnard education? And I'm always happy to help you make plans, as early as your first fall at Barnard and as late as your junior fall about how to make a successful graduation plan that incorporates getting that SIPA degree in the 4+1. And I have dedicated monthly office hours for talking about this. And I will drop this link in the chat. This is just a Google Doc where you can sign up to meet with me. And that's about all that I have to say.
Thank you. I'm going to jump in. Thank you, Professor Ananat. Hi, everybody. I'm Suya Yi, Associate Dean for Student Affairs at SIPA. And it is my privilege to be your academic advisor also at SIPA. And I have such a wonderful time advising you all, coaching you through the program, making sure that you're meeting all your requirements, answering all kinds of questions, helping connect you with resources, opportunities, and anything else that you need during your time at SIPA. It is, as Professor Aldenot mentioned, a very rigorous 2-year full-time program, and you do have to have space in your 4th year to take 12 credits a semester at SIPA. We want you to come into your 5th year with 24 credits, and then you take 30 credits over at SIPA, and we could get into that a little bit more later. But I just wanted to introduce myself, give a warm welcome. Thanks for being here. Some of you may have reached out to me already. If you do, I will often ask you first, have you checked in with Beyond Barnard? Have you checked in with Professor Ananat? Because it's important to start at Barnard to ensure that you're eligible for the program before we take too many steps towards you beginning, and then to find out that you're not eligible because you have other requirements to fulfill in your 4th year. But hello, everybody. I'm going to turn it over to Associate Director at SIPA Admissions, Brianne Kane, who's going to walk you through our program and cover a lot of important aspects of how to apply. Brianne?
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks, Suya. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining this afternoon. As Suya mentioned, my name is Brianne Kane. I am one of the Associate Directors of Admission at Columbia University's School of International and Public Affairs, otherwise known as SIPA. You all being in the Columbia network at large are probably used to some acronyms. So you'll hear me talk a lot more about the acronyms or just, our lingo here at SIPA as well. I'm so excited to join today and talk a little bit more about the advantages of studying policy and being here at SIPA and offer any advice that I can give on my end on the admission side. So my presentation today isn't super long. It's about maybe 25 minutes, but generally speaking, what I'll talk about is why SIPA, the advantages of studying graduate school in graduate school, and the advantages students have here. An overview about the degrees, then what you can anticipate doing the 4+1 program. Talk a little bit about life as a SIPA student, and then lastly, the admissions process and financial aid. We'll also use the end of this time to do any questions that you may have and be able to be a resource for all of you. So just kicking off with a little bit of history about SIPA, we were actually founded in 1946 in the aftermath of World War II. We became a place in New York City for officials, professionals, and diplomats to meet to solve complex issues of a post-war world. And the reason I always bring this up in any information session I do is because that sentiment and that mission still remains the same today. We're a place where future diplomats and future officials and future professionals come to study to solve complex issues that we are facing in the world today and many years beyond. And additionally, SIPA is actually recognized as the world's most global school for policy at the graduate school level. And SIPA focuses on, training our leaders for effective solutions through understanding multinational policy issues. Oftentimes I'm asked, what do I like most about SIPA? Well, I like what it is that you get out of it at large as a student, but certainly I've narrowed it down to three areas, made it easier for my job, which is our city being located in a major metropolitan city like New York, our choice in a cutting edge and flexible curriculum, and then our connections, the folks that you meet inside the classroom, such as your peers and faculty, and beyond in a global alumni community. So, starting with New York City, you're all familiar, being as you're all studying in New York right now. And perhaps this was a search when you were looking for undergrad, wanting to have access and really be in a global hub with unparalleled opportunities. New York City remains an active learning laboratory at the graduate school level, and certainly one studying policy and international affairs as well. New York is home to some of the best organizations, the United Nations, Fortune 500 companies, local, national NGOs, just to name a few. It also brings in world leaders, ambassadors, humanitarian workers who are here traveling for work, and then often will come uptown to our campus to be able to meet our students. So our SIPA students have some really awesome access to be able to participate in events, across the aisle events, maybe through the Institute of Global Politics, perhaps a guest lecture in one of your classes. There's this really unique advantage about being in New York, studying this field at large. On a personal note, you're all used to being in New York, but I'm a theater person, so I always say it's a great place to lay down your roots for 2 years. And many of our alumni actually do stay in New York. About 10,000 of our alumni are here presently in New York City, continuing to work in this space. So not everyone may go to other places. We still see that students have a home here in New York. When it comes to choice, as I mentioned earlier, we really do have a cutting edge curriculum, and I'll talk a little bit about those curriculum updates later in this presentation. But each year we annually offer 450 courses. That's a lot to choose from. Just at SIPA, 450 courses. There's so much to choose from. But beyond that, there are courses to choose from at Columbia at large through 8 of our graduate schools to cross-register with. So perhaps if your schedule allows it to, and I'll, defer to Dean Yee if I am missing something here, but typically you do have the option to cross-register at some of our graduate schools. Maybe you're interested in human rights law and there's a class at Columbia Law School. You're able to take a course there. I had a student who worked in my office who had an interest in education policy. He ended up taking 2 courses at Teachers College and really amplified those goals that he had in mind. So, one of the wonderful benefits of this is that it does open up your community and your network and really amplify those goals that you may have in mind to different sectors at large. And then lastly, connections. SIPA is home to 75 full-time faculty and over 300 adjunct faculty. So there are a lot of practitioners and scholars that are here actively teaching these courses. We also offer 7 different research centers. Our newest one is the Institute of Global Politics, founded by Secretary Clinton and Dean Milo. They have really interesting events. If you all have never attended one, as Barnard students, you can join live streams. There's some really interesting ones that come up actually on a weekly basis. So they're typically responding live to a current event. So certainly check out that website. That'll be my plug for them. And you'll be able to really experience some of these events and conversations that are happening at large among our student body, our faculty and staff. But I think one thing I always like to know in the graduate school experience is those connections that you do have with faculty. I do think that they really do become more like mentors in terms of helping you find those internships, those full job postings, those recommendations. So it really is a mentorship that you'll find with the relationship building with professors here. And then lastly, we all have 26,000 alumni in 160 countries. So we do remain very global. Our student body is extremely global, which I'll talk about a little bit later, but you can't do good work alone. You'll be joining an excellent community of alumni who are serving all across this world in the policy and international affairs space. Now, switching gears, I do want to highlight the degree overview, what you can anticipate when being here as a potential 4+1 student. At SIPA, we offer 7 master's degrees and 1 PhD program. I highlighted the 2 programs here that you would be eligible for doing if you are looking at the 4+1 program, which would be our 2 flagship programs, our Masters of International Affairs, otherwise known as our MIA, and our Masters of Public Administration, otherwise known as our MPA, which are full-time programs, typically 21 months, so about 2 years. Earlier, I talked a little bit about our cutting edge curriculum, and we actually enhanced our curriculum for starting this fall. So, all of you who will join us will have the opportunity to be a part of this incredibly new change here at SIPA, a more globally immersive MIA, a newly STEM designated MPA program, more flexible core with reframed concentrations, and expansive lists of optional minors as well. So if you are currently starting to think, well, what program is best for me? Fear not, I had a slide on that. So I already beat you to your question, which what you can see here are the MPA and MIA. And generally overarching, what I tell students is that our MPA is more quantitative heavy and our MIA is more qualitative heavy. Additionally, our MPA tends to be a little bit more domestic, while our MIA, no shock here, is more international. Under the MPA, you can see the course content while I talk about the quantitative area is pretty quant heavy. You'll see economics, data analytics, leadership management, finance. You may see more students pivot to the private sector, whether that be consulting, research, business, green finance, whatever that may look like. You'll also will see some leading government agencies and career paths as well. As I did mention, our MPA is STEM designated. So if you are an international student joining today, that may be something that you are looking for. And our MIA is more globally immersive. We offer 2 different tracks within our MIA, and pretty much everything in the course content does have the word international in front of it. So this is really meant for students who may see themselves working in foreign service, humanitarian aid, diplomacy, governance, NGOs at large, perhaps for students maybe leaning toward that multilateral, nonprofit, or public sector. When you are applying to SIPA, you are selecting one of the programs, so the MIA or the MPA, and then you're picking a concentration. So I like to say, think of this as your major during your time here. We have 8 different concentrations all around different policy areas. So I certainly invite you to check out our website, see which ones might be best, which one might be best for you, depending on your studies currently at Barnard, and then beyond where you may see yourself in the short term and long term. We also do have a expansive optional minors list, which is great. So we used to previously have around 6 specializations, and now we have about 30 optional minors. So this does make it more flexible for you as a student. You can take a minor even if you are in a different concentration. So perhaps you're studying urban social policy and you take a minor in climate policy. You are able to do that as long as you meet any prerequisites in general. And I am going to turn it over to Dee to talk a little bit about the MIA and MPA degree at large, and then just let me know when you want me to advance the slide, Suya.
Thank you. So yeah, this is just kind of a visual of the MPA degree and the MIA degree. It's a 54 credit degree that includes a 30 credit core, plus your concentration of 15 credits. Most of our courses are either 1.5 or 3 credits. So a 15 credit concentration will be 5 classes. And then what's remaining are 9 credits of electives, which you can repurpose into one of those optional minors, or you can do graduate electives in one of the other schools. Brianne's right, you can cross-register, law school, business school, other schools, as long as you follow their policies. And so with those 54 credits, you get the degree. And so we also have a little bit of a breakdown here of like what's happening in your 4th year. And so here we just say remaining college requirements, and Professor Ananat mentioned those are your potentially 2 remaining courses at Barnard, and then you're doing 24 credits of SIPA coursework. In your 5th year, where you're officially in residence at SIPA, you're doing 30 credits, usually broken down into 15 credits per semester or 5 classes per semester. From among all of our SIPA courses, plus other graduate electives. Your core requirements, 1 concentration, an internship, and professional development requirement, and those are 0 credit requirements. And then you are doing a credit capstone or a thesis if you're an MIA student. Thesis is an option only for MIA students. You can go to the next slide. And so this is kind of an overwhelming slide, but we kind of want to overwhelm you with all of the choices you have. And so one of the really exciting features of this new curriculum is that we're introducing a modular core, which means that you have, let's say, one 3-credit politics course. And so everyone in the MPA will start with American politics, which is the first part of the semester. And then for the second part of the semester, you choose a Politics 2 elective. And so you can see the variety of the electives there in the right. And the same with Policy Skills 1. Everyone is taking Policy Skills 1, which is Policy Communication and Advocacy. And then you get to choose a part 2. And so even in the core, which is 30 credits, so it's more than half of your degree, our core requirements, there's still a ton of choice. Leadership and management is a requirement for both the MIA and the MPA. Everyone takes this class, Leadership in Action, and then you choose from among those electives. And these are not even all of the options for fulfilling Politics 2, Policy Skills 2, Leadership and Management 2. But we ran out of space, and these are all evolving constantly. And some of these courses, especially in the Policy Skills 2 category, could potentially count towards your concentrations. There are a lot of data courses there that could count if you're a data science policy concentration. And then for the MPA students, you have an additional financial management requirement, which follows a similar structure, not as robust offerings for financial management too, but you still have that unified core of foundations of budgeting, which everyone takes. And then you get to choose from among 3 options of electives to fulfill that requirement.
Thanks, Suya.
Thank you.
As you just mentioned, we do have a capstone workshop project, which does take place during the final semester of your final year here. I always see the capstone as essentially an accumulation of all the skill sets that you've gained during your time at SIPA and applying them to a live consulting project. So it is a live consulting project with an external client. The goal of it is to provide an innovative analysis with practical recommendations. So it is not a mock case whatsoever. You are working with a real life client on a real life issue. In some of the photos you can see here, our students have traveled abroad to actually meet our clients. So our clients are worldwide. They are not just here domestically in the United States. Don't know if you can see my cursor moving, but this top right-hand photo, that group was with the Nigerian Investment Sovereignty Authority. They were studying and working on finding waste management solutions throughout Africa. So they did travel to Africa for 10 days during spring break. They went to 5 different cities with their client, which was really great. I mentioned the student earlier who was interested in education policy. He worked with the Ministry of Science and Education in Kazakhstan. They were looking on figuring out ways to bring international students to Kazakhstan to study higher ed. So he also traveled out there. And one of my students who just graduated in May, she was studying urban and social policy here at SIPA, and she did travel to Jordan this past spring, and she was working on working with different garment factories and looking at different labor laws and restrictions. So that one actually has a really great blog post. So I am going to plug the SIPA admissions blog. There's a lot of great content on it. But the capstone is always really interesting to learn what the students are studying, what they're doing, and be able to see the work that they put into it. And as Suya mentioned, this year or moving forward, the MIA students will have the option to do either the capstone or a written thesis. The MPA students will do just the capstone. And then just moving on for life as a SIPA student and student life here. I did mention earlier that we are known as the world's most global school for policy, and that certainly does come from our global and diverse student body. So overall, we have around just over 1,400 students here at SIPA, with our MIA and MPA class typically around 500 to 550 students each year. In that class, around 65% of our students are international students. So they're coming from over 85 different countries, speaking over 30 different languages in a 15-floor building, which is really unique. So I always say you learn just as much from the students who sit next to you in class, from just as much as you will from the professors. They're coming from all corners of the world. And SIPA's motto is where the world connects. And I truly do believe that is true because we do see students worldwide coming to this program. And then just generally speaking across the board for all of our programs, on average, we typically see students who have around 4 years of full-time work experience, the average age being around 26 and the average GPA being about a 3.6 on the American 4.0 scale. All of these are averages, none of them say required, so keep that in mind. That's just generally what we see. And then we have our awesome Office of Student Affairs, and every student has a dedicated advisor to help you navigate the graduate school experience. They do great events outside the classroom and, thinking of social events, community service, networking, making New York City your home. This past weekend, there was a trip to Ellis Island, which funny enough is not this photo here, but just happens to be while I'm talking about it. As I mentioned, I love theater, so I got to go see Hamilton with Office of Student Affairs as a chaperone. They can always put me again as a chaperone if it means Hamilton is on board. I will be there. But as you all are studying here in New York City, you're certainly taking on, I'm sure, the thrill of being here. But I think that what the Office of Student Affairs, particularly at SIPA, does a great job is, most of our students are not from here, are coming from a different country. So they really make it a wonderful transitional experience to find your home here. So I'm sure many of you here at Barnard can help those students as well as taking on all that you can in 2 years. And finding your life outside the classroom, clubs and organizations don't just end right during your undergrad. SIPA has a robust community. This is not all of our clubs and organizations. I did my darndest trying to fit all of them on this slide, but we actually have around 50. So there are a lot of ways to stay involved here at SIPA. As a SIPA student, you do have access to do any club and organization at Columbia at large. You're not just siloed here, but you can see the organizations really do range, whether that be from general interest to cultural interest, political interest. There is an array of different ways to get involved. And then lastly, just before moving on to our time talking about admissions, I do want to note our Career Advancement Center. You can see a little breakdown of where students are going to on the left-hand side, but just some facts I like to share. Our Career Advancement Center did over 2,000 hours of advising appointments, which actually does include for alumni, because as a SIPA graduate, you do have lifelong access to the services here in our Career Advancement Center. With that, they did over 150 different employer information sessions held on campus, which is really great. And that's for internships and full-time postings. And then we utilize something called SIPA Connect, which is our internal job board. So think of that as Handshake or LinkedIn, where there are over 2,000 postings for internships and full-time jobs. And then where are students going? These are just an overview of some of our top employers for the past few years. Our top employers for the MPA and the MIA do include the World Bank and the United Nations, just to give you an idea of where students have gone to. Perhaps those are ones that are in mind for you, maybe post-grad. And then just as I wrap up, I do want to talk about applying to SIPA. As a 4+1 student, you do apply during your junior year. There is no application fee, so we do waive that $95 application fee. The GRE GMAT is not required, and then there's no deposit if required. So we will waive your enrollment deposit if you do ultimately apply for this 4+1 program. So keep that in mind. Those will be waived for you. And then when to apply, these are our deadlines each year. You would be looking at the fall, fall each year. So fall 2026 is our upcoming one. We do have a few different deadlines to consider. Our first one being early action, which is November 1st. If you apply by November 1st, you have an admission decision by January 1st. December 20th, which is our fellowship consideration deadline to be considered for any fellowship, you would apply by December 20th, and our final admission deadline for February 5th. You can see when ultimately students will have an admission decision as well. And then just your application checklist, what you'll need. This will become a lot clearer once you start filling out your application. But of course, your online application and your application fee being waived. Any written essays this year, we have 3 required written essays and 1 optional essay. A video essay, which is a bit unique, so I can answer any questions about that during the Q&A. We require 2 letters of recommendation, so these should be either academic or professional. Academic meaning a professor that you worked with, and professional in your case, maybe if you did an internship and you had an internship coordinator that you worked close with, they could write a letter of recommendation. A 3rd letter is optional. Your resume, an academic orientation, you can certainly have a longer 1-page resume. We typically see on average about 3 pages. This should include your academic history, any work history, research, community engagement, volunteer work, all of that we do want to see on your resume. We do have a quantitative portion of our application. So if you took any quantitative courses during your time at Barnard, for us, quantitative courses include economics, statistics, mathematics, engineering, computer science, and the sciences. We just ask you to put the name of the course, where you took it, the grade you earned, and a brief synopsis of the course. You'd be surprised of how many transcripts that we get that just say mathematics, and we don't know, was that calculus? Was that algebra? And just a note, as I am here on my end, since you all are in undergrad, if I can offer a piece of advice, if you have not taken economics yet, please take economics. It is important for this program, and we do want to see it. So that is my caveat there. All transcripts from after high school do need to be submitted to us. If they're not in English, they should be translated, and they should include all grades and a grading scale. For our MIA, our language and travel resume is required just for the MIA only. That would include any languages spoken, and then travel would be any study abroad, immersion experiences, or travel for work. As mentioned, the GRE GMAT would be waived for you all, and the TOEFL or the IELTS will probably not apply to any of you because you are studying here for a 4-year bachelor degree. That's only applicable if English is not your first language or if your undergraduate degree was not taught in English. And then just very briefly, lastly, I am not the financial aid team, but I have 3 wonderful colleagues who are. But just some items to consider when thinking about financing strategy. As you know, graduate school is an investment of your time, but thinking also of the other investments of living in a major city, rent, housing, items like that. First, thinking about yourself or family in terms of that strategy. Any student loans, about a third of our students will utilize student loans to finance their time here. External scholarships, it's never too early to start looking at those scholarships that are available. We do have a database on our website as well. So if you are curious, once you're starting to fill out the application, you can see the database on your student portal. And then SIPA fellowships and assistantships would be based on the application as a whole during that final year that you were here. So when you were in SIPA residency full time. And then that's it from me. I know that was a lot, but I am going to keep this up for a hot second. If you have questions for myself or Jeannie regarding the experience, certainly don't be a stranger. And if we can help at all, we are happy to. So that's it from me at SIPA. And see if I missed anything. I know that you had to cut out at one point, but if I missed anything that I didn't talk about, let me know.
I think we're ready for Q&A. I don't see any in the chat, but feel free to put them in there or come off mute and ask. We're here to answer.
Hi. Yeah, I had a question, or maybe 2 questions. So my first one, I'm Amanda, by the way. I'm a Barnard sophomore. Thank you so much for your presentation. So my first one was, is the MIA specifically only for people who are interested in doing international work? As a student who has a lot of international experience and speaks a lot of languages and like studies that, but would like to most likely work domestically.
I would say generally speaking, the students who select the MIA do see themselves working in some foreign capacity. In your case, since you mentioned that you already are studying international or have had an international experience, you speak languages, perhaps thinking about the MPA may be a good blend of, kind of marrying those two together within public administration and the work that you've already had. But generally speaking, I would share that yes, typically that does lean toward international scope of work. It's not the end all be all. There may be students who utilize their MIA and work at a nonprofit based here in New York City that is grassroots. So it can really depend, but I would say generally speaking, that's where students may see themselves going.
Thank you so much. And then my second question was just, what is typically like around the acceptance rate for either the MPA or the MIA for students who apply to the 4+ club and are, set with their graduation track and degree track?
So I will be honest, I'm not quite sure of the actual acceptance rate for the 5-year program. We are considerably favorable to students. You know, you are here in the Columbia network at large. You are being approved to work on this. So it is something that we are favorable to our students who come into this program, but certainly it's based on the application as a whole within the pool. I actually myself don't review the applications for the program. Other members of my team do, but something to consider. It can depend each year, but I will generally say we are pretty favorable to students applying to the 5-year from the 5-year.
I can just add that we don't have like a strict limit. So, you know, we look at each individual application on its own for your eligibility, for your fit with SIPA, you know, for your academic background, and evaluate each one as it comes. I can start on this other, and also wanted to mention to Amanda that just so everybody knows, all of the 8 concentrations are available, whether you do the MIA or the MPA. So keep that in mind. If what you're more drawn to is one of the concentrations, you can choose one of those. The one thing about the MIA is that if you have a lot of international experience, you might be able to waive some of the requirements there, which are designed to introduce some international experience to folks. So if you already have that background, you might be able to waive out of some of that, which might be an advantage. It might give you more elective space and more flexibility in your program.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So this question about financial aid for 5th year, I'll just say one piece of that, which is that you'll be applying in the spring of your 4th year for assistantships like TA-ships, RA-ships, program assistant positions at SIPA to start in your 5th year. And that's going to be a major source of funding for you for the 5th year. Brianne, do you have anything to add financial aid side?
No, not on my end. I think that answers it pretty well since you are only really in residence fully during that 5th year at SIPA. During your 4th year, you're kind of half and half. So 5th year, your residency is fully with SIPA, and typically the assistantships are what our students will utilize to offset costs of tuition.
And you are in residence at Barnard in your 4th year, so you should expect, you know, your financial aid to be consistent with what you've been receiving. You know, that's something to check maybe with Beyond Barnard folks or your own financial aid, you know, ensuring that you're enrolled for the required number of courses and that you're in good standing.
There is a question, does the early action and regular application apply to us given we are going through the screening with Ananat prior? I would say generally speaking, students who are applying for the 4+1 are applying closer toward the February 5th deadline. I don't want to speak in terms of the screening and what that will look like on the Barnard side, but I will say generally speaking, I typically see applications for this program coming from Barnard students in the beginning of the year, so January or February by that February 5th deadline.
That's what we want to see, is applying after you've completed that fall. We would love to see just, you know, one more semester of academic history from your fall record. So we're not really looking for students applying now while they're still in progress in the fall. And I don't know when your form opens for review, but it might be in January.
I mean, in particular, one of the requirements to apply is meeting a GPA threshold of 3.5 at winter of your junior year. So you can't actually, we should probably delete that part of the presentation for the purposes of this crowd, because those early application deadlines are not relevant to our students.
Those are all the questions that we have for now. Happy to wrap up. This is your last call if you have a lingering question. All right, well, thank you so much for being here, and thank you to our colleagues, Professor Ananat and our SIPA colleagues, Brianne and Suya, for your time today. And yeah, this recording will be made available afterwards for anyone who wants to revisit it. Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a great
everyone.
day.
Thanks.
Bye.